in our current society. To give an example, I forget the exact numbers, but this is going to be quite close. But out of, if the average number of men that a lady has slept with is 7, let's say, 5 of those is done under the influence of a significant influence of alcohol, and at least 2 of those they can't remember the name the next day. These are the statistics.
But do you know what? No one's ever died, regretted they'd had too many orgasms in their life. Let's be honest here. Because not every woman jumps into a bed.
Yes, but you know what?
Because hold on a second. They are emotionally vulnerable, so they fall, and that may be the case with some, but with others, it's mainly the case of, do you know what? I'm quite open-minded. I'm quite happy with my decision to do it, even if it is casual.
No, but you know what? Too many orgasms certainly won't kill you, unless, of course, you don't take adequate precautions and you go down with syphilis or something. Which, by the way, it's increasing now. Syphilis, which was a Dickensian illness, is now coming back. How about that? And now the key thing to understand is that, yes, you're not going to die of too many orgasms, but it's not going to make you happy. In fact, you could end up being extremely miserable, because eventually people will say, well, I've done this X amount of times. What is the point in all of this? You've now devalued something which was meant to be there to entice you into having a proper relationship.
That's a very moralistic. That's very moralistic behaviour, and it's very rational behaviour in some ways. If you think about it, because the thing is, ultimately, are we not primal beings?
So that's why morals and ethics and cultural values exist to guide us.
I know that we have put those in place, but we are also quite primal, because let's face it, and we're talking mainly about women being like this. We're not really talking about men doing it, because that seems to be okay. I mean, does it make a man happy that
men are hunters?
Women? Absolutely.
Men are hunters, so therefore it's completely different.
So when we talk about women who decide to here, I'll put it this way: man meets woman when they're young. They get married. She's only ever had the one partner. She's never known anything else. They settle into their routine, and do you know what? They sleep with each other on a regular basis for the next 30 years. Then there's one woman who hasn't been able to find the right partner, let's say, but she's then having slept. She's probably had about 10, 20 sexual partners along the way. I'm over-exaggerating. I'm probably over-exaggerating here. 10, 20 sexual partners along the way over that same 20-year period. She still probably had sex far less than the woman who met the partner earlier on. So in terms of...
Also about the number, we're not talking about the number of sex, we're talking about
the thing is, we're judging them on the number of men they have, and not the number of times that they've had sex over that period of time.
But that's irrelevant, and of course you're assuming that couple will continue having lots and lots and lots of sex.
Well, it does tail off after the first year, guys. If you're thinking about getting married, no, I'm joking. just so you're warned. But if a woman, a woman sometimes wants to have a sexual release. So therefore, if she's not in a regular she hasn't got a regular partner, then surely she's entitled to do that.
You're absolutely right. But that doesn't seeking sexual release. Within moderation doesn't make you promiscuous. I mean, obviously promiscuity is different to that, because of course you're right, people do have their physical needs.
Well, some people would call it promiscuity, because the thing is, you haven't defined it. There's no rules to say, actually, this is the line. This is the line between promiscuity and sexual release. Who's decided on that line?
I think the
society in some ways has.
I think the point is promiscuity will probably differ for different people, because it's one thing to. First of all, promiscuity usually means, for instance, that you don't necessarily have that high standards. It usually means that you don't say no with any difficulty. It usually means that perhaps you are seeking to replace something that's missing in you. So there's all sorts of reasons.
Yes, they are seeking that's what's missing in them. It's called a partner.
Well, not really, because they're being promiscuous to avoid having a partner.
They may not want a partner. They may be happy with their lives of working,
but they don't. No. This is the big
and having sex
the big lie. The big lie. So 2% of jobs are careers. 2%. So ladies are being told from a young age, from school age, concentrate on your career. But 98% of those are going to be jobs. A job is defined as something that you will not do unless you're paid. And you're not necessarily going to be that happy doing it. So it's a means to an end. So 98% of women are being lied to are being told, give up everything to do something you'll probably hate, and then when you see reason, you're going to be too old to be able to do much about it, because you'll be competing with women 15 years younger than you.
Because ultimately the government or the system wants taxpayers.
So that's another problem for ladies. So it goes back to what we keep on coming back to time and again, which is the fact that we have the same rights as members of the community, as members of the human race, but we need to recognize and celebrate our differences, because we are different. Last week I touched on the fact that men and women are very, very significantly different. A lot of people talk about the fact that observed differences in behavior between men and women are socially derived from experience.
Yeah.
This is completely wrong. So there's a gentleman called Simon Baron-Cohen who's done...
Sacha Baron Cohen?
Simon Baron-Cohen.
Oh, is the Ali G? Isn't it Ali G?
Sounds like
Borat?
it. Sounds like it. In fact, the interviewer talking about this made exactly the same joke. I think he's Swedish-Norwegian, but he has done a lot of work on testosterone exposure in the womb of fetuses. And what he's found is that the amount of testosterone that a fetus is exposed to will determine the level of masculization of the brain and in fact the body as well. So for instance, you could have a male fetus, but if it's not exposed to testosterone, it will not develop male genitalia, it will remain female. Similarly, you could have a female fetus, which is if it's exposed to a lot of testosterone, will become a male brain and also develop male genitalia, even though it's genetically fememale. Chromosomally
Is that why
female.
you got transgenderism?
Well, that's an excellent point. Yes, that could be an explanation of at least some of it. Now, they depending on the amount of testosterone exposure in the fetus, that is directly proportional to behaviors that you see in 1-year-old babies. In other words, the interest in eye contact they may have, or the interest in observing movement or rough and tumble play, is directly related to testosterone. So males and females are vastly different from a very early age. And indeed in countries where adults are allowed to be self-determinant, such as Norway, which has gone further along the lines than any other country, then if people are allowed to make their own choices, then they do tend to go for the usual stereotypes. So women go for caring professions and men go for engineers.
Well, there are more doctors now than there are female doctors than there are male doctors now.
A disaster. And you know why that's a disaster?
Because they're a lot more nurturing, so a lot more empathetic.
No, it's not a disaster at all. No.
It's not a disaster.
Same as it was not a disaster that they're nurturing, of course not. But it's the same problem
that you have with
other professions. So if you have lawyers and you have female doctors, it's very hard to keep these ladies in their careers past their late 30s full time. Because what happens is they reach the point of thinking, oh my God, my biological clock, I've got to have children. Once they have children, a lot of them come to their senses and realize, actually, I can't have a career and bring up kids. Of course I can't.
Well, you can. You look at, we've talked about Margaret Thatcher before, and she was a great political leader, really bad mother.
That's the difficulty you've got, and that's the dilemma that a lot of these poor ladies are faced with, because they're not guided by society. But a significant amount of them will just give up or go part-time, because statistically, because these ladies marry diagonally and up, they're going to be with a relatively high-earning man.
Here's the thing I want to...
And therefore they can afford to give up. But then, therefore, the state has spent hundreds of thousands of pounds training these ladies who give up.
So because here's one thing that I've become quite evident of, there's evidence that is becoming self-evident, is that women aren't getting stronger, they're becoming more empowered because, media's doing that, they're making people believe that they are capable of so much more and they need to achieve so much more and things like this.
No, they're getting weaker. They're getting weaker.
No, I think women are getting stronger. I think men are getting weaker.
No, well, both, actually. Both.
I believe women are getting stronger overall, women getting weaker. So then you've got these women...
No. Women are getting weaker and men are getting weaker.
Come on, you can jump in and criticise it later. But otherwise I'm not going to get a word in edgeways in this podcast. So... if women are getting stronger, or I believe that women are getting stronger, and men are getting weaker, then they've got their, mummy issues or whatever, and they find a strong woman partner. Basically, they're actually taking on another mother to look after them. All right. So not only are they working, are they providing? So the women are thinking, you know what? I've actually got a guy here who's weaker than me. She doesn't respect him, so therefore she then becomes self-reliant because she doesn't need him, which is why she'll then revert back to being a social player in the dating market. Why would you stay with a man who's particularly good? Because I've got to say, I'm sorry guys, I'm sure house husbands do really good jobs, but I've got to say it's a job in my life I don't understand. And call me old-fashioned, but a house husband, in terms of the psychological effects that it's having on him, he's now playing the nurturing role. He's also going to a shadow self. He's if you actually look at Carl Jung's material of the shadow self, and they then become more controlling. They start then looking to actually impose their maleness into the relationship, but playing a very feminine role in the relationship. And all of a sudden, you've got a whole conflict of interest. She doesn't respect him, and do you know what? The whole circle of life starts being manipulated, or is being manipulated. Do you not think so?
Very wisely observed. Now, going back to what you said about women getting stronger, what do you mean by women getting stronger?
Well, they're becoming more empowered by the whole. Yeah, they are becoming more empowered by the whole of what society is looking, or what's portraying, or what's being portrayed. You understand that? Okay, well... So you've got the Karen Brady's of this world, Baroness Karen Brady's of this world. You've got the Michelle Moans of this world, who started the bra company. These are women who are seen as figureheads of women's... Oprah Winfrey is another one. These are seen as women who are empowered, and all women can actually aspire to achieve that level of success.
For 1 in a billion.
That's right. But it is.
Well, you see, the difficulty is that women are actually suffering from increased amount of stress, so that they are actually weaker. And the reason they're weaker is because they're being forced to do things they don't want to do.
Well, they're being forced into doing things which is against their flow, which is against the natural thing. Because to be in flow, you need 3 things. 1, you've got to be able to enjoy it, which raises your dopamine.
A lot of them may do, though. A lot of them may do.
2, you've got to be challenged by it, but your skill set's got to be able to match the challenge, which means that you are still in control, or have self-control over the task that you've got ahead of you. As soon as your skill set's not up to that and starts putting you under stress, which is what's happening. So let's be careful how we
get ahead in your career. It's, as we said,
keep on pushing the barriers,
which means
they pass their threshold,
and it's not part of their typical personality, is it?
Absolutely. And I'll give it to you as an analogy. So if you've got let's say you've got a little old lady, it is a stereotype. She's quite comfortable at driving at 30 miles an hour down the road. And do you know what? She could probably even be positively challenged just by pushing it up to 40 miles or even 50 miles an hour. And that could still put her in her flow. However, as soon as you put her on the same road as Lewis Hamilton, and she's got to match his standard, and she's got to now drive at 150 odd miles an hour or whatever it is, she can't sustain that for a long period of time before she breaks. But that's also the same for a guy, by the way. It's not just a woman. So in that respect, people have got to be positively challenged, but I can't take them too far away from the comfort zone.